Am I the a-hole for refusing to sell my rental properties at my fiance's request? Throwaway because you know. 2 years ago, I, 36, proposed to my fiancé, 30, and our wedding is going to be this coming summer. When we met, we both owned properties. She owned a pretty typical luxury townhouse, and I owned 2 properties in the inner city. We both agreed that when it was time to cohabitate, we'd live in her condo. I own an old 2-up 2-down duplex in a neighborhood that butts right up against an old industrial area, which I was living in until we moved together. And on the next block I also own a 4,000 square feet concrete block industrial building. I got them as part of a screaming package deal about 12 years ago, when you couldn't give property away in that neighborhood. I now rent the duplex to a couple of Hispanic families, and God I hope they never leave me, best renters ever, and I rent half of the factory building to a guy who does HVAC, and the other half to some microbrewery hipsters. The powers of gentrification have been at work in this hood for about half the time I've owned these places, and I'm making beaucoup bucks on these rentals. I could lose my job tomorrow, and not even blink. My fiancé does not see it this way. Ever since we've moved in together, she's been pestering me to sell the places. It's been ramping up the closer we get to the wedding. I keep telling her that, as long as I own these places, it's a practically guaranteed third source of income and would be invaluable if either of us hit a rough patch job-wise. She doesn't see it that way though, all she sees is a potential big pile of liquid cash that can go towards wedding, honeymoon, and upgrades to the living situation after. We had the biggest blow up yet about it last Saturday and I kind of lost it. I'm a saver and she's a spender, and I said that to her in far less pleasant terms and also mentioned the amount of credit card debt she has, and since then things have been pretty frosty. It started fine, but quickly went south and ended in a big fight that degenerated into a lot of petty mudslinging by the end. Am I the a-hole for refusing to sell my second income? Update. So, the conversation didn't happen until the weekend of the 14th of March. Life got in the way. She accused me of not trusting her, fair, and I pointed out that her habits make it basically impossible to trust her with money anyway, probably not my proudest moment. But I did again make it clear in no uncertain terms that the properties are staying in the LLC and I won't sell them, and that the financial decisions regarding them would be mine alone. I may have also had a few choice words about the princess for a day wedding she wanted. After a couple of weeks of avoiding each other and not talking, and me sleeping in the basement of the townhouse, I said I wanted to hit the pause button and leave for a while. She was upset but didn't say much. I loaded up my things and went to my parents' house and told them what happened. They told me I could stay as long as I needed. Somewhere near the end of April, I got a call from her dad out of the blue, what the hell, demanding to know what was going on and why I'd broken things off. I tried to explain what had been going on, but he was the angry dad of an upset young woman and I don't think much got through. That call ended with him calling me a scumbag and hanging up on me. I've only had a few properly long-term relationships end in my lifetime, but that's the first time I've had an angry father yell at me about one. There's been no contact since. I'm sad that just over 4 years of my life with someone went up in smoke like this, but that's the way she goes, I guess. My parents didn't seem very surprised when I showed up, so maybe I really was the last one to know what was going on, like so many Redditors were pointing out. For some good news, and also the thing that reminded me to update my Reddit post, is that yesterday I bought another house, one for me to live in. A tiny little brick post-war brick ranch in an old subdivision about 20 minutes from my rentals. It needs work, but I'm looking forward to having a project to take my mind off things. It's going to be strange living on my own again, but I think I'll manage. Am I the a-hole for refusing to put my BF on the title of my house or make him a beneficiary? Background: my BF of over 3 years has been living with me for 18 months. We are both in our 30s, happy, and talk about how this is it for us, relationship-wise. We are in it for the long haul. Only problem: he does not want to get married, and I really do. Marriage is important to me. We have had a lot of talks recently, and his vibe is somewhere between not ready and commitment as far as marriage is stupid, so why bother? After many long discussions I realized that I love him enough to stay and take marriage off the table, even though I want it. He says he doesn't know if he'll ever want to get married. Side note, we both do not want children. Now the issue. I got paperwork from my insurance and was looking through it. I made a joke about how my parents are going to be really comfortable if I die, especially in an accident. They can mourn me in style because of my insurance policies and the added accidental death insurance I have. My boyfriend and I then got talking, and he mentioned how I should really change my beneficiary to him. I said no. Absolutely not. I told him that I would never make anyone who isn't blood or legal family my beneficiary. I said I would add him in the future if one day he decided he wanted marriage with me, but as it stands now my insurance will remain as is. I also told him that, since I own the house we live in myself, I bought it before we got together, that I would never add him to the title without marriage. Am I the a-hole? He is now mad and saying I'm an asshole and holding marriage as a bargaining chip. We never have to get married, but I am not comfortable tying him to my finances without being married. For added info, I also have a lot of money tied up in my house. He does pay me to live here. My mortgage is almost $1,200 and he pays me $400 a month towards that. I also have a lot of money invested in my house. When I bought it, I used $42,000 that I saved for the down payment. That was all my money and is now equity in the house that he had no part of. Update. I listened to a lot of your feedback and talked to my BF after my post. He seemed weird in our talk. He's been weirdy a lot lately, but I have been excusing it. He told me that he said to put him on as an insurance beneficiary partially as a joke, but then when I went off on my tangent, including offering up that he'll never go on my house title either, even though he never mentioned it, that he got offended and reacted poorly. He said he really did think I was going off about all that in retaliation for his no to marriage talks, so he was left with a bitter taste. Which, I get. I can be more forceful than I realize, and I am naturally passive-aggressive. He said I didn't have to put him on anything, but he needs me to understand that I am it for him. He wants to make his life with me. Things seem to be better after this. That weekend he asked if I wanted to go on a hike. It was peak season for the leaves changing, and there is this waterfall he suggested we go to. We get to the waterfall, and he pulls an envelope out of his jacket with a tiny bow on it and says it's a present for me. I open it, and it's a receipt from a jewelry store. I was confused, but I see he had the date of purchase highlighted and circled with a heart. It was early August, before the talks we had, where he said he never wanted to get married. I turn and there he is with a ring. I said yes. He said he knew I would never believe that he had the ring before all this without the receipt. That his attitude and comments, when I started asking about marriage, was to fool me, so I didn't get suspicious, because this was the plan all along. He wanted an autumn proposal and a beautiful location since it's my favorite season. Money he has been saving after moving in with me, since I charge him a much smaller amount than he was previously paying, went to the ring. He saved money for over a year because he knew when he moved in with me that he was going to eventually ask me to marry him. So honestly this is the best case scenario. We talked after too. When we get married, we will add each other as beneficiaries on our insurance policies. And we decided there's no need to put him on my title even after we get married. I really appreciate everyone's comments on that last post. I read all of them, and most people were genuinely concerned and offered wonderful advice and support. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife her parents are not allowed to ever watch our son again? My wife and I have a 2-year-old son and have been married for 4 years. Our anniversary was a month ago, and we found a nice, secluded cabin on Airbnb and rented it out for a long weekend getaway. My wife asked her parents if they would be willing to watch our son, and they agreed, as long as we dropped him off at their house. That worked for us since it was on our way anyway. I was raised Lutheran and my wife was raised Catholic, but neither of us currently go to church and have not had our son baptized. My Mill knows this and hates it. She thinks our son needs to be baptized or he will burn in hell. She's that kind of Catholic. So, we go on our trip, and when we pick up our son and ask how the weekend went, Mill says everything went fine and that she has saved my son's soul from the devil. I ask her what she meant, and she says she had our son baptized that morning at her church. I tried my best to keep my cool, so I didn't scream at Mill in front of my son, but I pretty much grabbed my son and left. On the car ride home, I was fuming and told my wife as calmly as I could that this would be the last time her parents have our son unsupervised. She tried to downplay what her mom had done, but I told her we need to wait until we get home to talk about it because I'm not fighting in front of my kid. When we got home and had a chance to talk about it, things got heated. I told my wife I no longer trust her parents with our son and that if they did something like this behind our backs, I can't trust them to respect our wishes as parents in the future. I said this was a huge breach of trust and I will forever look at her mom differently. She continued to try to defend her mom, saying that she was only doing what she thought was best for her grandson. She even downplayed it by saying that it's just a little water and a few words and we don't go to church anyway, so what does it matter? I told her that under no circumstances will I allow her parents to watch our son by themselves again. I said that we can still let them see their grandson, but only if we are present. I also said that, if she doesn't see what the big deal is with the situation, that maybe we aren't on the same page as parents, and maybe we need to see a counselor. She started crying and said that this isn't the kind of decision I get to make on my own, and I'm an asshole for trying to tell her what kind of relationship her parents can have with our son. I told her that I no longer have any trust or respect for her parents, and that I don't know if there's anything they can do to repair that. I told her I don't care if that makes me an asshole, but what her parents did was unforgivable in my eyes, and they put themselves in this position to lose privileges with our son. She's been trying to convince me to change my mind for the last month, but I'm not budging. To me, this is a hill I'm willing to die on. Update. First off, I want to thank everyone who sent me supportive messages and advice. I never expected my post to get so much attention. Since many of you requested an update, here we go. Turns out some of you were right, my wife was in on it. I confronted her a couple days after I posted and directly asked her if she knew that her parents planned this. She broke down and confessed everything to me. Mill had been pestering her about baptizing our son non-stop, and my wife finally caved. My wife has been working from home during COVID-19, while my job requires me to go into the office. My wife and Mill started doing Zoom meetings with Mill's priest to start the baptism process. They lied to the priest and told him that I was okay with baptizing our son but didn't want to be involved. The priest allowed it, and they started doing online baptism classes while I was at work. My wife admitted that she planned it around our anniversary getaway and that Mill had somehow convinced the priest that her and Phil would be the only ones in attendance. My wife told me that I wasn't supposed to find out, but Mill couldn't keep her mouth shut for even one day about it. Their intention was to keep this from me permanently. I did contact the church to let them know the truth. I talked with the priest and he was surprisingly helpful. He said he would take the proper steps to make sure Mill is no longer welcome in their church and to reach out to the local parish to see what further steps need to be taken. I have yet to hear back from them on that. My wife and Mill are mad that I got her kicked out of her church, but I don't care what they think or feel anymore. These people who I love and trust had betrayed me, and I felt a range of emotion I didn't know existed. My wife begged for forgiveness, but the fact that she didn't come clean on her own makes me feel she would have kept this from me unless I confronted her. She's willing to do therapy, counseling, whatever it takes. I don't know if I want to put in that work. I feel like there's no coming back from this. I contacted a divorce lawyer and started discussing what a divorce would look like and if there is any way I can add provisions to a divorce agreement that would keep my in-laws from seeing my son unsupervised. He's been very helpful, but I have not given him the go-ahead to actually file for divorce yet. I feel I am still too angry about the entire thing to think rationally and want to give myself time to fully grasp what a divorce will mean for me and my family. My wife and I aren't talking much. I pretty much go to work, come home to play with my son, go to bed, and repeat. I don't know what the future is going to bring, but I do know that without the support and help from people here, I don't think I would have the clarity I do now. Am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister and her kids move into the house that I bought? I'm a 32-year-old woman and I just bought my first house. It has 3 bedrooms, a yard, and is just what I need right now. I'm single and have 2 dogs. My sister is 34, has 3 children and lives in a 2-bedroom apartment. Lately, she's been talking about how such a tiny living space is not enough for the 4 of them. When she got to know about the house I had bought, she became very upset and told me I was being wasteful as I'm single and don't have kids and therefore don't need such a big space. I reminded her that what I do with my hard-earned money is none of her business. She went on to complain to our mother about how selfish I was being. Yesterday evening, I got a call from my mom telling me I should let my sister and her kids move into the house. My house. I told her that no one was going to live in the house that I paid for but me, and that extra space would be great for my dogs to play in. My mom also got very upset with me and told me I was being unreasonable. That my sister's kids are growing and need the space more than my dogs. I offered to help my sister out financially so she could rent a bigger place. My mom got my sister on the phone, who shot down the idea, telling me I needed to let her and her kids live in my house. When I refused again, she very generously suggested a compromise. I could live in the house with her and her kids and would not have to find somewhere else to live. She said this as if she was doing me a favor. I told her she had lost her mind and hung up. Am I the asshole, or is she? I know my sister is struggling financially, but this kind of entitlement is ridiculous. Update. First and foremost, I want to thank all of you for your kind and supportive comments and for all those awards. You're all beautiful. After getting the verdict from Am I the A-hole, I decided to send my sister and mom a link to this post, letting them know that I had made it. As expected, they freaked the F out. My mom has been texting me telling me what a horrible daughter I am and how I've embarrassed her in front of so many people. I told her to calm down as these are all strangers on the internet who have no idea who she is. But asking my mom to listen to reason is like asking my cat to stop shoving things off of horizontal surfaces. So, I told her I'd talk to her when she's willing to act like an adult. My sister has been crying about this to my mom and any other relative who will listen, most of them won't. They had been on my side from the start and had agreed that my sister's demands were ridiculous. They think this whole thing is hilarious. Thank you once again. Edit. Some of you asked in my original post if I really thought I was the asshole. I didn't, of course. I just wanted to show my mom and sister what a group of unbiased observers would think of their behavior.